The Galactic Council and the Human Girl. In the vast reaches of the galaxy, where countless stars and planets glitter in the endless void, the Galactic Council held the reins of power. This council was not just a governing body, but a massive organization that ruled over many worlds with an iron fist. Their members, each representing a different advanced race, were proud and confident, often seeing themselves as above all others. They had the technology and military might to back up their arrogance, and they believed their rule was unchallenged. On a small, seemingly insignificant planet named Terra, life went on with a sense of peace and normalcy. The inhabitants of Terra, known as humans, were an ordinary species by galactic standards. They had not yet achieved the level of technology or power that many other races possessed, but they had a strong sense of community and a fierce will to protect their own. Among these humans was a young girl named Lily. Lily was just 15 years old, but was known throughout her community for her kindness and bravery. She lived in a quiet village where she helped her family and friends every day. Lily's life was simple but filled with love and purpose. She had dreams of exploring the stars, but those dreams seemed far away in the quiet corners of her small planet. One day, everything changed. The Galactic Council, in a move that shocked many, decided to make an example of a planet they considered insignificant. They wanted to demonstrate their power and intimidate other worlds that might dare to challenge their authority. Terra was chosen, and Lily's village became a target. The Council's decision was swift and brutal. A squad of elite soldiers descended on Terra, equipped with advanced technology and weapons far beyond anything the humans possessed. The purpose of their visit was not diplomacy or negotiation, but to send a harsh message. They selected Lily as their unfortunate symbol of their might. The decision was cold and calculated, meant to instill fear and obedience across the galaxy. When the news of Lily's death reached her village, the impact was devastating. Her family and friends were heartbroken, and the entire community was thrown into mourning. The Galactic Council had not only taken a beloved life, but had also disrupted the harmony of an innocent world. The humans were outraged and felt a deep sense of injustice. Lily's death was not just a personal tragedy. It was a rallying point for the human race. The leaders of Terra, who had long been cautious and pacifist, found themselves faced with a critical decision. They understood that they could not let this act of violence go unanswered. They needed to show the Galactic Council that their actions had consequences. In a meeting of human leaders, the gravity of the situation was clear. They knew that any response would be risky and dangerous, but their resolve was strong. They decided to send a clear and unambiguous message to the Galactic Council. It was not a threat of revenge, but a simple, powerful warning. Pray. The message was delivered through a secure and direct channel. The human leaders crafted their warning carefully, ensuring that the tone was stern but not overly aggressive. They wanted the Galactic Council to understand that their actions had crossed a line and that they should now pray for their safety. The word pray was chosen deliberately. It was a plea for mercy and a statement of the seriousness of the situation. When the Galactic Council received the warning, their reaction was mixed. Some members dismissed it as a futile attempt at intimidation, while others felt a growing unease. The Council was used to dealing with threats and challenges, but this simple message from an unexpected source left them uneasy. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were forced to confront the possibility that their actions might have serious repercussions. As the Galactic Council pondered their next move, the people of Terra began to heal and regroup. They were united in their grief and anger, but also in their determination to stand up for themselves. Lily's memory became a symbol of their resilience and their unwillingness to be cowed by the arrogance of a distant power. The stage was set for a dramatic clash between the might of the Galactic Council and the newfound strength of humanity. Council's decision. In the heart of the Galactic Council's grand headquarters, the room was filled with a tense, uneasy silence. The Council's chambers were a massive hall, adorned with advanced technology and the symbols of their power. Representatives from various powerful races sat around a large circular table, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. They were deep in discussion, each one bringing their own perspective to the matter at hand. The topic of their discussion was Terra, a small, unremarkable planet by galactic standards. The Galactic Council had decided to make an example of Terra, and now they were deliberating over the details of their plan. The Council had a reputation for maintaining control through fear and power, and they saw Terra's insignificance as an opportunity to reinforce their dominance. The leader of the Council, a tall, imposing figure from the Regilian race, spoke with authority. "We need to make a statement. Terra has shown signs of defiance, and it is crucial that we demonstrate the consequences of such actions. Their behavior is a threat to our stability." Another member, a representative from the Cygnus system, nodded in agreement. "We must act decisively. Our previous methods of intimidation have not been as effective as we hoped. This planet, though minor, can serve as a powerful lesson for others." A third council member, known for their cold and calculating demeanor, added, "We should target something or someone significant to their people. It will make the impact of our actions more profound and serve as a strong deterrent." As the council debated, the holographic displays showed various options for their course of action. They considered various forms of punishment, from economic sanctions to direct military intervention. But as they reviewed their choices, it became clear that they sought a method that would maximize fear and minimize resistance. The Regilian leader raised a finger, signaling a shift in the conversation. "I propose we select an individual of symbolic importance to them. It will demonstrate that no one is beyond our reach. A young, innocent life would be especially impactful." The idea met with a mix of reactions. Some council members were initially hesitant, feeling that such an act might be seen as overly harsh. However, the leader's arguments were persuasive. The concept of making an example out of someone with emotional significance was too tempting to ignore. After further discussion, the council settled on a plan. They would target a young girl from Terra, one who represented the innocence and purity of their people. The decision was made not out of a specific grudge, but as a calculated move to showcase their power and instill fear. Once the decision was made, the council members moved quickly. Orders were issued to deploy a squad of elite soldiers to Terra. These soldiers were equipped with the most advanced technology, ensuring that the mission would be executed with precision and efficiency. The Galactic Council wanted to make sure that their message was delivered clearly and without any chance of misunderstanding. The timing of the operation was set to coincide with a period when the Galactic Council's influence was particularly strong, aiming to maximize the psychological impact on the wider galaxy. The Council's leaders were confident that their actions would send a clear message to any other planets considering defiance. As the orders were carried out, a sense of cold satisfaction spread among the council members. They had chosen their target and planned their method of intimidation. The girl's death would be a grim but effective tool in their strategy to maintain control over the galaxy. Unbeknownst to them, this decision would have far-reaching consequences. While they saw Terra as a mere pawn in their grand scheme, the human response would prove to be much more complex and defiant than they anticipated. The Council's overconfidence in their ability to crush resistance would soon be put to the test, setting the stage for an unexpected and dramatic confrontation. The Galactic Council, firm in their decision, continued with their routine of governance, oblivious to the growing storm that their actions had set in motion. Little did they know, their plan was about to awaken a resilience and unity among the humans that would challenge their very perception of power. The human response. In the aftermath of the Galactic Council's ruthless decision, life on Terra was plunged into a state of shock and mourning. The news of the young girl's death spread quickly across the planet, and the reaction was one of collective grief and outrage. The people of Terra had always lived with a sense of peace, but now they faced a harsh reality that challenged their very sense of security. The leaders of Terra convened in an emergency meeting. The room was filled with the heads of various human factions, their faces grim and determined. Among them was General Marcus, a seasoned military leader known for his strategic mind, and Dr. Elena Rhodes, a respected diplomat who had long worked to maintain peaceful relations with other worlds. Together, they represented the unity and strength of humanity. General Marcus spoke first, his voice steady but full of resolve. "We cannot allow this atrocity to go unanswered. The Galactic Council thinks they can intimidate us, but we must show them that we will not be cowed by their cruelty." Dr. Rhodes nodded in agreement. "The killing of this girl is not just an attack on an individual. It's an attack on our entire species. We must respond in a way that makes it clear we will stand up for ourselves." The leaders began to discuss their options. They were aware of their limitations in terms of military strength and technology compared to the Council's advanced capabilities. However, they were determined to find a way to send a powerful message. The debate was intense, with various suggestions being put forward. Some advocated for a direct military response, hoping to strike at the heart of the Council's power. Others argued for a more diplomatic approach, aiming to build alliances and gather support from other worlds. Despite their differing opinions, there was one thing everyone agreed on. They needed to act swiftly and decisively. After much deliberation, a consensus was reached. The human leaders decided to send a clear and unequivocal message to the Galactic Council. It would be a simple but powerful statement that encapsulated their anger and resolve. The message was to be delivered in the form of a broadcast, directly to the Council, and it would be short and to the point. The broadcast was prepared with great care. The message read, "We mourn the loss of our beloved. The Galactic Council has made a grave mistake. We warn you now. Pray for your safety, for the consequences of your actions will be dire." As the broadcast was transmitted across the galaxy, the human leaders felt a mix of relief and apprehension. They knew that this message was a bold move and that it might provoke further retaliation. But they also understood the importance of standing up for their principles and showing their strength. The Galactic Council received the message with a mix of surprise and irritation. Many of the council members dismissed it as a desperate attempt at intimidation. They were accustomed to dealing with threats and saw this as a minor inconvenience. However, there were others who were not so easily dismissive. The simple, direct nature of the message struck a chord, and some council members began to feel a sense of unease. Back on Terra, the broadcast had a unifying effect on the human population. The message resonated deeply with people from all walks of life. There were gatherings in towns and cities where people came together to mourn the girl and discuss their response. It was a time of collective reflection and determination. Humanity's response was not just about retaliation, but about reaffirming their values and strength. The leaders began to coordinate efforts to bolster their defenses and seek support from other planets that might be sympathetic to their cause. They reached out to allies and began to build a coalition, showing that their fight was not just about revenge, but about standing up against oppression. As the situation developed, the Galactic Council began to realize that their actions had sparked a broader movement. The Council's overconfidence and sense of superiority were being challenged by the unexpected resilience and unity of the humans. The simple message had done more than just convey anger. It had rallied humanity together and set the stage for a significant confrontation. The human response was just beginning, and the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. But one thing was clear: humanity was no longer willing to be a passive player in the galaxy. They had taken their first step towards standing up for themselves, and the Galactic Council would soon learn the true strength and resolve of the human spirit. The warning issued. With the Galactic Council's decision to target Terra, the human leaders knew they had to act quickly. The death of the young girl had galvanized their people, and now they were ready to send a clear message to the powerful interstellar rulers. The leaders gathered in a secure communication room, their faces set with determination. General Marcus and Dr. Elena Rhodes were at the center of the meeting. They were flanked by their top advisors and communication experts. The room was filled with the hum of advanced technology, with screens displaying data and maps of the galaxy. The mood was intense but focused, as the leaders prepared to draft their warning. Dr. Rhodes spoke first, her voice calm but firm. We need to send a message that is clear and unambiguous. The Galactic Council needs to understand the gravity of their actions. It must be something that resonates with them and makes them think twice. General Marcus nodded in agreement. Our goal is to make sure they realize we are serious and that we will not tolerate their actions. We need to be direct and precise. The advisors began to draft the warning. They debated the wording carefully, knowing that the message needed to be strong without being overly aggressive. The human leaders wanted to convey their resolve while avoiding any language that might provoke unnecessary escalation. After much discussion, they decided on a straightforward message. The warning would be brief but powerful. The final draft read, "To the Galactic Council, the death of our young one will not go unchallenged. We warn you now. Pray for your safety. We will not be intimidated." The message was sent through a secure channel directly to the Galactic Council. The transmission was made with the utmost care, ensuring that it reached the highest levels of the Council's hierarchy. The human leaders hoped that the simplicity of the message would cut through any doubts and reach the core of the Council's decision-makers. As the message was dispatched, the human leaders waited anxiously for a response. They knew that their warning would provoke a reaction, but they were unsure of what that would be. They had made their stance clear, and now it was up to the Galactic Council to decide how to respond. On the other side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council received the warning with mixed reactions. The message was delivered to the Council chambers, where it was immediately scrutinized by the members. The room, filled with representatives from various advanced races, fell silent as they read the message. Some council members were dismissive, viewing the warning as a minor threat from a small and insignificant planet. They were used to dealing with more serious challenges and believed that this message was a desperate attempt by the humans to assert themselves. However, other members of the council were not so easily dismissive. The simplicity and directness of the message struck a chord with them. The use of the word "pray" was particularly unsettling. It was a stark contrast to the Council's usual diplomatic and strategic communications. For some, it raised questions about the seriousness of the human response and the possibility of further consequences. The Council debated the message extensively. The leader of the Council, a figure known for their strategic mind, considered the implications carefully. They recognized that underestimating the humans could be a mistake. The warning had been crafted to be both a threat and a plea, and it was clear that the humans were not going to back down. The Council's response was cautious. They decided to address the warning with a measured approach, aiming to assess the situation more thoroughly before taking any further action. They wanted to avoid escalating the conflict while still demonstrating their own power and control. Meanwhile, back on Terra, the leaders awaited the Council's response. They remained resolute, knowing that their warning had been sent and that their position was clear. The broadcast had been a critical step in asserting their strength and defiance, and now it was time to see how the Galactic Council would react. The warning had done its job. It had conveyed the humans' resolve and set the stage for the next phase of their struggle. The Galactic Council now faced a choice: how to respond to a species that had shown it would not be easily intimidated. The tension was building, and the future of the conflict was uncertain. Tensions rise. After the human warning was issued, the atmosphere in the Galactic Council's headquarters became increasingly tense. The Council had received the message, and while some members had dismissed it, others were deeply concerned. The reaction to the warning was mixed, but it was clear that the situation was becoming more complex by the day. In the Council's main conference room, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The room was filled with representatives from different races, each one accustomed to wielding immense power. The message from Terra had disrupted their routine and forced them to reconsider their approach. The leader of the Council, a tall, imposing figure from the Regilian race, called the meeting to order. "We have received a message from Terra. It is a clear warning and demands our attention. We must decide how to respond." The members of the Council exchanged glances. Some were visibly annoyed by what they saw as an unnecessary provocation. Others were more thoughtful, weighing the potential risks and consequences of their next move. A representative from the Cygnus system, known for their pragmatic approach, spoke up. "We should not ignore this. The simplicity of their message indicates that they are serious. We need to assess their capabilities and determine how best to proceed." The Rigelian leader nodded. "Agreed. We must evaluate the situation carefully. Let's begin by gathering intelligence on their current status and potential capabilities. We need to understand what we're dealing with before making any decisions." Meanwhile, on Terra, the mood among the human leadership was one of heightened alertness. The broadcast warning had been sent, and now the leaders were preparing for any possible responses from the Galactic Council. The human military was on high alert, and defensive measures were being put into place. General Marcus was in constant communication with his officers. "We need to be ready for anything. The Council may try to test our defenses or escalate the situation. Ensure that all our systems are operational and that we are prepared for a possible confrontation." Dr. Elena Rhodes, working alongside General Marcus, was focused on diplomatic efforts. "While we prepare for a potential conflict, we should also explore any diplomatic avenues. We need to show that we are open to negotiation, but we will not back down from our stance." The Council's reaction was cautious but decisive. They ordered their intelligence agencies to gather as much information as possible about the human military and their capabilities. They wanted to understand the extent of the threat and assess whether the humans could follow through on their warning. As days passed, tensions continued to rise. The Galactic Council began to position their forces strategically, readying their fleets for any potential action. The Council's representatives debated the best course of action, weighing the benefits of a show of force against the risks of further conflict. At the same time, the human leaders worked tirelessly to ensure that their response was well coordinated. They conducted military drills, updated their defense plans, and strengthened their alliances. The focus was on maintaining unity and readiness in the face of the Council's looming presence. The Galactic Council's cautious approach was not without its own challenges. Some members were eager to strike back and demonstrate their power, while others advocated for a more measured response. The debate within the Council was heated, with each faction presenting their arguments and concerns. The situation reached a critical point when the Council decided to send a small, unarmed diplomatic envoy to Terra. The goal was to assess the human response and gauge their willingness to engage in negotiations. The envoy was equipped with the latest communication technology, but carried no weapons, signaling an attempt at diplomacy rather than aggression. The arrival of the envoy on Terra was met with mixed reactions. While the human leaders were open to dialogue, they remained cautious and prepared for any unexpected developments. The arrival of the envoy was a significant moment, as it represented a possible opportunity for de-escalation, but also a potential precursor to further tensions. As the envoy began their mission, both sides watched closely, waiting to see how the interaction would unfold. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and the stakes were high. The Galactic Council's next move would determine the future of their relationship with humanity and the potential for peace or further conflict. The rising tension between the Galactic Council and Terra was a testament to the high-stakes nature of their interactions. The situation was fluid, with both sides preparing for various scenarios. As the envoy engaged with the human leaders, the future remained uncertain, and the path forward would depend on the choices made in the coming days. Council's mistake. The arrival of the Galactic Council's diplomatic envoy on Terra was supposed to be a simple, calculated move to assess the situation. The envoy, composed of several high-ranking officials and their support staff, had been sent to understand the human response and perhaps to offer a gesture of goodwill. However, what the Council did not anticipate was the profound impact this visit would have. The envoy landed on Terra in a sleek, unarmed shuttle. It touched down in a secure facility, where human representatives were waiting to greet them. Dr. Elena Rhodes, the diplomat who had played a key role in the human response, was tasked with overseeing the meeting. She greeted the envoy with a mixture of professionalism and caution. The envoy leader, an elderly figure with an air of wisdom, extended a diplomatic hand. "We come in peace, seeking to understand the nature of your response and explore potential avenues for resolution." Dr. Rhodes responded politely but firmly. "We appreciate your arrival and are open to dialogue. However, our position remains clear. The death of the girl was unacceptable, and we seek assurances that such actions will not be repeated." As the discussions commenced, it quickly became clear that the envoy underestimated the resolve and unity of the human representatives. The Galactic Council had hoped that their gesture would soften the human stance, but instead it revealed a deep-seated anger and determination among the people of Terra. General Marcus, who was also present, took the opportunity to highlight the strengths of the human military and their preparedness. "We are ready to defend ourselves and protect our people. Your visit must result in a meaningful response, or we will continue to prepare for any eventuality." The envoy leader, though respectful, was visibly uncomfortable. The bluntness of the human response was unexpected. The Galactic Council had assumed that their show of diplomacy would lead to concessions or at least some sign of compromise. Instead, the humans demonstrated that they were unwavering in their commitment to stand up for themselves. The Council's mistake was in underestimating the impact of their own actions. By choosing to make an example of the human girl, they had ignited a firestorm of unity and resistance. The Council had hoped to demonstrate their power and instill fear, but their actions had backfired, uniting the human factions and strengthening their resolve. As the discussions progressed, it became evident that the envoy's mission was not achieving its intended goal. The humans were not swayed by diplomatic niceties. They were focused on ensuring that their message was heard and that their demands were met. The Council's failure to recognize the depth of human resolve was becoming increasingly apparent. The envoy, feeling the weight of the situation, attempted to offer concessions. "We understand your anger and are prepared to discuss potential reparations and guarantees. Our aim is to find a way to move forward without further conflict." But the offer came too late. The humans had already rallied around their cause, and any attempt at negotiation now seemed like an insufficient gesture. The Council's mistake was in not recognizing the shift in the human perspective earlier. Their actions had not only offended, but also galvanized the human population, making it more difficult to achieve any form of meaningful dialogue. The return of the envoy to the Galactic Council was met with a mixture of frustration and concern. The Council members were divided, with some expressing anger at the envoy's inability to resolve the situation and others lamenting the missed opportunity for a more effective approach. The Council's mistake had profound implications. It had strengthened the human position and created a more challenging environment for any future negotiations. The once clear path to asserting dominance had become a tangled web of conflict and resistance. The Galactic Council now faced a dilemma. They had to reconsider their approach, recognizing that their initial actions had inadvertently united and empowered the very people they sought to control. The mistake had shifted the dynamics of the situation, leaving the Council to navigate the fallout and seek a new strategy to address the growing human defiance. As the situation continued to evolve, the Council's misjudgment became a critical lesson in the complexities of interstellar relations. The humans had shown that they would not be easily subdued, and the Council would have to adapt to this new reality if they hoped to regain control and influence. The confrontation. The tension between Terra and the Galactic Council had reached a boiling point. The Council's envoy's visit had only intensified the situation, and both sides were now preparing for a potential confrontation. The diplomatic efforts had failed, and the mood on both sides was one of high alert. On Terra, General Marcus and Dr. Elena Rhodes were working round the clock to ensure that their defenses were ready. The human military had been on high alert since the Council's actions, and now, with the threat of conflict looming, every unit was at its highest state of readiness. The once peaceful planet was now a hub of activity, with soldiers, engineers, and strategists working together to prepare for the worst. General Marcus stood in the command center, overseeing the final preparations. His face was set with determination as he addressed his officers. "We don't know when or how the Council will act, but we need to be ready for anything. Our defensive systems are operational, and our forces are at full strength. Ensure that all communication lines are secure and that we are prepared for any form of attack." Dr. Rhodes, meanwhile, was engaged in last-minute diplomatic efforts, trying to reach out to potential allies and reinforce human unity. "We need to show that we are not alone in this. Our stance is firm, but we must also seek support from other worlds that may be sympathetic to our cause." The Galactic Council, on the other hand, was also gearing up for potential conflict. The failure of the Envoy's mission had prompted the Council to reconsider their strategy. They decided to deploy a sizable fleet near the borders of human space, sending a clear message of their intent to assert their dominance. In the Council's command chamber, the atmosphere was tense as the leaders discussed their next move. The Regilian leader, who had previously been cautious, now faced mounting pressure from other Council members to take decisive action. "We have shown our willingness to negotiate, but the humans have not responded as expected. It is time to demonstrate our strength and resolve." The decision was made to proceed with a show of force. The Council's fleet, a formidable array of advanced starships and warships, was mobilized and moved towards the edge of human space. The deployment was designed to intimidate and assert control, a direct response to the humans' defiant stance. As the Council's fleet approached Terra, the tension was palpable. The human defense forces were on high alert, their sensors scanning the space around them for any sign of the incoming threat. The situation was becoming increasingly precarious, with both sides bracing for a possible confrontation. On the eve of the potential clash, General Marcus gathered his senior officers for a final briefing. "This is a critical moment. We must remain focused and resolute. Our goal is to defend our planet and show that we will not be intimidated. Remember, our strength lies not just in our technology, but in our unity and determination." As the first of the Council's ships entered human space, the confrontation seemed imminent. The Council's fleet, with its advanced weaponry and imposing presence, was a sight to behold. The human forces, though smaller in number, were prepared to face the challenge head-on. The initial encounter was marked by a tense standoff. The Council's ships held their position, and the human forces did the same, each side waiting for the other to make a move. The silence was heavy, broken only by the occasional communication between ships and the hum of energy shields and defensive systems. Finally, a communication signal came through from the Council's flagship. The message was direct and uncompromising. "Human forces, you are in violation of Galactic Council directives. Disperse immediately or face the consequences." General Marcus responded with equal firmness. "We will not retreat. We are prepared to defend our space and our rights. The actions of the Galactic Council have brought us to this point, and we stand ready to protect our world." The standoff continued, with both sides poised for action. The tension was at its peak, and it was clear that the situation could escalate into open conflict at any moment. The human forces stood their ground, showing their determination and readiness to face the Council's might. As the confrontation loomed, it was evident that the path forward would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. The choices made by both sides in the coming hours would determine the future of their relationship and the potential for peace or further conflict. The stage was set for a dramatic and potentially decisive clash, with the fate of Terra hanging in the balance. The confrontation was more than just a military engagement. It was a test of resolve, unity, and the will to stand up against oppression. Realization. The standoff between the human forces and the Galactic Council's fleet continued to build in intensity. As both sides maintained their positions, the pressure was mounting on the Council's leadership. The initial expectation of a quick resolution through intimidation was giving way to a more complex and challenging reality. On Terra, General Marcus and Dr. Elena Rhodes were working tirelessly to manage the situation. The hours were long and filled with uncertainty, but they were determined to ensure that their forces were prepared for any eventuality. The defensive systems were at peak readiness, and every soldier was on high alert. In the command center, General Marcus reviewed the latest updates from the front lines. "We're holding our ground, but the Council's fleet is still advancing. We need to stay vigilant and be ready for any sudden moves." Dr. Rhodes, meanwhile, was engaged in intense discussions with other world leaders and diplomats. "We need to continue showing unity and strength. We must also prepare for any potential diplomatic efforts that might arise from this standoff." Back in the Galactic Council's command chamber, the atmosphere was one of growing concern. The initial plan to assert dominance was not working as expected. The human forces were not backing down, and the Council's show of force had not achieved the intended effect. The Regulian leader, who had pushed for the show of force, began to realize that the situation was more complicated than anticipated. "We underestimated their resolve. The humans are not easily intimidated, and our fleet's presence has only intensified their determination." One of the council members, a seasoned strategist from the Andromeda sector, spoke up. "We must consider the possibility that our approach has backfired. Instead of achieving a quick resolution, we've strengthened their resolve and drawn more attention to the conflict." The realization that their tactics had not worked began to sink in. The Council had hoped to use their superior firepower to force a swift surrender, but the humans' unity and determination had changed the dynamics. The Council's leadership was faced with the difficult truth that their approach might lead to prolonged conflict rather than a decisive victory. In the midst of the standoff, an unexpected development occurred. A communication signal came through from one of the Galactic Council's lower-ranking officers. The officer, whose name was Lieutenant Zora, had been observing the situation closely and had a different perspective. "We need to reconsider our approach. The humans are not acting out of fear. They are defending their home. We should explore alternative methods for resolution." The Regulian leader listened carefully. "What do you propose?" Lieutenant Zora continued. "We should open a channel for more meaningful dialogue. The current situation is escalating, and if we continue down this path, we risk a protracted conflict that could have severe consequences for both sides." The council members debated the suggestion, with some still clinging to the idea of using force. However, the growing realization that their tactics had not worked led many to agree that a change in strategy was needed. The idea of opening a channel for deeper dialogue was gaining traction. Back on Terra, the human leaders were also reflecting on the situation. The ongoing standoff had brought a new awareness of the complexities of their interaction with the Galactic Council. While they remained resolute in their defense, they also recognized the need for a potential diplomatic resolution. Dr. Rhodes took the opportunity to suggest a more proactive approach. "We should be prepared for any signs of genuine willingness to negotiate from the Council. While we stand firm, we should also remain open to discussions that could lead to a peaceful resolution." As the realization set in on both sides, the atmosphere began to shift. The Galactic Council's decision to consider alternative methods for resolution signaled a potential turning point. The humans, while maintaining their readiness for defense, began to see the possibility of finding common ground. The standoff was far from over, but the growing awareness on both sides indicated that a new phase of the conflict was emerging. The realization that force alone might not bring about a quick resolution opened the door to a more nuanced approach, one that could pave the way for dialogue and a potential end to the escalating confrontation. The coming days would be crucial in determining whether this new understanding could lead to meaningful negotiations or if the conflict would continue to escalate. The realization that both sides needed to adapt their strategies marked a significant shift in the dynamics of the standoff, setting the stage for the next chapter in their complex relationship. Ending and future. The tense standoff between Terra and the Galactic Council had reached a crucial turning point. Both sides, having faced the harsh reality of their actions and the complexities of the situation, began to explore the possibility of a different path forward. The realization that their previous strategies had not worked was setting the stage for a potential shift in their relationship. On Terra, General Marcus and Dr. Elena Rhodes were carefully monitoring the latest developments. The human forces remained vigilant and prepared for any potential threats, but there was a new sense of cautious optimism in the air. The possibility of a resolution had become more tangible, and the human leadership was ready to explore this new opportunity. General Marcus addressed his team in the command center. "We've seen some signs that the Council is reconsidering their approach. While we must remain ready, we should also prepare for the possibility of negotiation. This is a chance to end this standoff and find a path to peace." Dr. Rhodes was working on crafting a response to the Galactic Council's tentative offer for dialogue. "We need to make sure that our message is clear. We are ready for meaningful negotiations and are open to finding a resolution that respects our position and addresses the concerns on both sides." In the Galactic Council's command chamber, the atmosphere was a mix of relief and cautious optimism. The shift in strategy was seen as a necessary step toward de-escalation. The Council members were preparing to open a formal channel for dialogue, recognizing that continued conflict would only lead to greater losses and instability. The Regilian leader addressed the Council. "Our initial approach has not yielded the results we hoped for. We must now pursue a path of negotiation. Let us extend a formal invitation to the human representatives to discuss a peaceful resolution to our conflict." The decision was made to send a new diplomatic envoy to Terra, one equipped with more substantial proposals and offers of compromise. The goal was to demonstrate a genuine commitment to finding a resolution and to rebuild trust between the two sides. As the new envoy arrived on Terra, the mood was tense but hopeful. The humans were prepared to engage in discussions, but they remained cautious, knowing that any agreement would need to address their core concerns and ensure that such an incident would not happen again. Dr. Rhodes met with the envoy, who presented a series of proposals aimed at addressing the grievances and fostering cooperation. The proposals included reparations for the loss of the human girl, guarantees of non-aggression, and opportunities for joint projects and trade between the Galactic Council and Terra. The discussions were thorough and detailed. Both sides engaged in open dialogue, exploring each proposal and working through the complexities of their respective positions. The negotiations were not without challenges, but the mutual desire for a resolution helped to drive the process forward. After several rounds of discussions, a preliminary agreement was reached. The Galactic Council acknowledged the wrongs done and committed to measures that would prevent future conflicts. In return, the humans agreed to ease their defensive posture and explore avenues for collaboration with the Galactic Council. The agreement marked the beginning of a new phase in the relationship between Terra and the Galactic Council. Both sides recognized that the path to lasting peace would require ongoing effort and cooperation. The resolution of the immediate conflict was an important step, but it was only the beginning of a broader process of building trust and understanding. As the agreement was implemented, the atmosphere on Terra began to shift from one of conflict to one of cautious optimism. The human leaders continued to work towards integrating the new arrangements and ensuring that the peace would be maintained. The Galactic Council, for its part, began to reassess its approach to interstellar relations, taking lessons from the recent conflict to improve its strategies and interactions with other civilizations. The realization that force alone could not resolve all issues was a significant turning point for the Council. Looking to the future, both Terra and the Galactic Council were committed to moving forward. The resolution of the conflict opened the door to new possibilities for collaboration and mutual benefit. The relationship between the two was no longer defined by conflict, but by a shared desire to build a better future. The ending of the standoff was a testament to the power of dialogue and the importance of addressing grievances with empathy and understanding. The experience had been challenging, but it led to a new chapter in the interstellar relationship, one built on a foundation of respect and cooperation. As the future unfolded, both Terra and the Galactic Council continued to work towards strengthening their alliance, ensuring that the lessons learned from their confrontation would guide their interactions and help prevent future conflicts.